Have you ever wondered, behind the harmless emails we receive every day, could there be an entire criminal machine operating in the shadows? And if Vietnamese case files told you that just one person, yes, a single Vietnamese individual acting alone managed to orchestrate a cyber intrusion so massive it forced both the FBI and multiple international agencies to hunt him for years, would you believe it? Today's story is a real case file about a true ghost of the cyber world, an anonymous figure emerging from the dark corners of the internet, infiltrating some of the most powerful tech companies to take full remote control. So, who was he? And has he paid the price for what he did? Stay with us for the next few minutes for the most detailed answers. And before we dive into the twists and turns of this case, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Vietnamese Case Files so you won't miss any upcoming true crime dossiers. Now, let's begin. In April 2011, users in several United States suddenly began receiving suspicious promotional emails. The strange part was that these emails were sent to addresses the users had only provided to major corporations, banks, supermarkets, retail chains, and had never shared publicly. For example, one customer discovered that his secondary inbox used exclusively for a major bank received an email offering to buy Adobe Reader 10, a program that should be free for $65. Meanwhile, another customer of a well-known retail chain received the same spam message at an email address used solely for the store's membership card. A wave of identical complaints alarmed major corporations, leading them to suspect their email marketing service providers had been compromised. And the suspicion turned out to be correct. On April 2nd, 2011, one of the largest email service providers in the United States publicly admitted that its system had been breached, exposing customer email databases belonging to many major brands. An urgent alert was immediately sent to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Shortly after, FBI Atlanta, the field office responsible for the region where the affected company was located, dispatched cybercrime agents to investigate the digital crime scene. As soon as investigators accessed the company's server environment, they realized the scale was enormous. The hacker had not targeted just one company, but multiple email service providers across the United States. Every footprint the intruder left behind indicated a highly organized, sophisticated attack, carefully obscured. Digital forensic engineers began tracing tiny fragments of evidence, odd IP addresses and server logs, several infected employee machines, and hundreds of gigabytes of data silently exfiltrated. From here, forensic specialists reconstructed the timeline. Beginning in late March 2011, the hacker infiltrated the database and quietly downloaded customer lists from hundreds of major corporations, explaining why customers from completely different companies received the same spam at the same time. The first key findings included: 1. Malware had been installed on an employee's computer, opening a backdoor for the hacker to control the system remotely. 2. The employee's admin credentials were used to access restricted data. And 3. All stolen data had been transmitted to a server located in the Netherlands. The fact that the attacker's server was hosted overseas immediately signaled an international cyber attack far beyond a simple phishing scam. FBI agents grew tense. If the hacker was really operating from the Netherlands or another foreign country, identifying him would be extremely difficult. And indeed, the investigation that followed dragged on for years, enduring countless challenges from analyzing the digital crime scene, tracing technical clues, to coordinating international cooperation to hunt down the offender. At first, investigators believed this might be the work of a large, organized cybercriminal syndicate, simultaneously breaching multiple companies, stealing record-breaking amounts of data, and launching massive spam attacks required significant resources and expertise. However, a bolder theory also emerged, that all of this could have been carried out by a single super hacker. Without enough evidence, investigators refused to rule out any possibility and began working on both fronts. As they examined the digital crime scenes, computer forensics experts from the FBI and the US Secret Service jointly dissected the compromised servers. They discovered the hacker's intrusion method was highly sophisticated. First, phishing emails crafted specifically for employees of targeted companies were sent out. These spoofed emails often contained links to cleverly disguised malicious websites, such as invitations to view wedding photos or greeting cards, tempting employees to click. Once the victim clicked, malware silently installed itself on the computer, stealing passwords and opening a backdoor into the internal network. The hacker then logged in using the employee's legitimate credentials, so no unusual activity was detected at first. From inside, he escalated privileges to access marketing databases and carry out large-scale data theft. Even more cunning, he leveraged the victim company's own infrastructure for the next phase. After stealing customer email lists, he didn't log out. Instead, he used the company's official mail servers to blast spam to the newly stolen addresses. This detail astonished investigators, as it meant the hacker had fully hijacked the systems of reputable email providers. As a result, the spam bypassed filters and was delivered successfully because it originated from legitimate corporate servers. Thanks to these tactics, the attack operated on an enormous scale without detection. Tens of millions of spam emails were sent every day during the period the hacker maintained control of the system. From an investigative standpoint, this discovery was both bad and good news. Bad because it showed how cunning the attacker was, but good because the activity left traceable logs on the victim's own servers, providing clear forensic evidence. Alongside technical forensics, the FBI also interviewed witnesses, employees of the hacked companies, especially those who had unknowingly clicked the initial phishing emails. They provided details about the email content, the time they received it, and what actions they took. The statements were highly reliable since the events occurred directly on their machines. However, a small inconsistency surfaced. At first, some employees believed they were merely victims of an isolated virus attack unrelated to others. Only after investigators shared their findings did they realize they were all pieces of a much larger coordinated scheme. Once the hacker's attack path was mapped out, advanced investigative techniques were deployed to uncover his identity. The FBI's cybercrime division mobilized specialists in online offender identification. Based on patterns of behavior, they drew a preliminary profile, a hacker with deep knowledge of email marketing systems, possibly someone who had worked in the industry or collaborated with insiders. Someone skilled in crafting malware, evading detection, and deploying remote control tools on compromised machines. His choice of a server located in Deventer, the Netherlands, as a relay point also suggested he understood hosting infrastructure and international legal frameworks, since the Netherlands has strong internet infrastructure and relatively tolerant hosting policies. These observations led investigators to suspect the offender was young, around 20 to 30 years old, highly technical, and likely from a country with an active hacker community. The FBI immediately sent a request to the Dutch internet service provider through its legal attaché office in The Hague and the MLAT Mutual Legal Assistance Channel to obtain information about the IP address owner of the suspicious server. However, just as predicted, the server had been registered under a fabricated or vague identity. Even so, the Netherlands agreed to cooperate further. By August 2012, after many months of preparation, the FBI and Dutch police executed a bold operation, raiding the physical server location and the suspected residence of the hacker in the city of Deventer. The raid took place at dawn. A tactical team quietly surrounded a small apartment on the edge of the city, the place where the server's internet subscription was registered. When the door was kicked open, agents rushed in and subdued the people inside. There, they arrested a 25-year-old Vietnamese man named Giang Hoang Vu. Along with Vu, numerous electronic devices, computers, and data-filled hard drives were seized. However, agents were stunned to discover signs that the apartment was the headquarters of at least 2 hackers, and that another individual had likely lived there but escaped or was simply not present at the time. More importantly, that missing individual was highly likely to be the mastermind. Fortunately, after being arrested, Giang Hoang Vu quickly admitted his role as an assistant in the spam operation. He also revealed the identity of someone far more significant, the mastermind, who had vanished. Viet Nguyen, 25 years old, also from Vietnam. Nguyen had lived with Vu for a period in the Netherlands, but before police arrived, he had already left. There was information indicating that Nguyen sensed danger and fled back to Vietnam where he had family and where no extradition treaty with the United States existed. Although Nguyen had not yet been arrested, identifying his full identity marked a breakthrough in the investigation. From here, the FBI shifted strategy, targeting the remaining links in the network while applying pressure that would eventually force Nguyen to surface. Expanding the investigation, the FBI discovered that to profit from the stolen email databases, Nguyen and Vu had partnered with a third party. Tracing the money trail from sales of the counterfeit Adobe software, the FBI uncovered an affiliate marketing company called MarketBay.com. This company was based in Canada and co-founded by David Manuel Santos da Silva, a Montreal businessman. MarketBay's affiliate marketing operations were precisely how Nguyen converted the stolen email lists into money. In simple terms, Nguyen sent advertisements to the stolen email addresses. When victims clicked the link, they were redirected to a website built by Nguyen but managed under MarketBay's platform. If a user paid for the software even though it was counterfeit or pirated, MarketBay processed the payment, delivered the product, and paid Nguyen a commission for every successful transaction. To visualize it, it was no different from doing affiliate marketing for Shopee, Lazada, or Amazon, except here, Vu and Nguyen had illegally infiltrated email service systems to steal addresses and send them fake products and services. Realizing MarketBay's crucial role, US authorities continued secretly gathering evidence against Da Silva. Investigators discovered that from 2009 to 2011, Nguyen and Da Silva earned approximately $2 million USD through selling software via massive spam campaigns. Da Silva knew very well that the traffic Nguyen provided came from stolen email databases, but driven by greed, he turned a blind eye and shared profits with Nguyen. By early 2015, once the evidence had been fully reinforced, US authorities decided it was time to act. They secretly obtained an arrest warrant for Da Silva and waited for the right moment. In February 2015, the moment Da Silva stepped off the plane at Fort Lauderdale International Airport in Florida, he was immediately arrested by the FBI. However, Da Silva's arrest was kept strictly confidential until authorities were ready to unveil the entire case. At the same time, another link in the chain was identified Sven Olaf Kamphuis, Sven Fransen, a German businessman living in the Netherlands. He operated the company Certo, Multibill, which specialized in online payment processing services. Investigators discovered that Multibill had processed more than 1.5 million USD in transactions for pirated software distributed by MarketBay, despite obvious signs of fraud and copyright violations. Moreover, Fransen not only turned a blind eye, but even advised Da Silva on how to disguise the true nature of the products when financial partners raised red flags. Clearly, to keep this illegal money-making operation running smoothly, Viet Quoc Nguyen had built an entire cybercrime alliance involving hackers, spam specialists, affiliate marketers, and payment processors. By late 2015, nearly the entire puzzle had been revealed. Giang Hoang Vu had been arrested and confessed. David Santos da Silva and Sven Fransen had been taken down one by one. Only Viet Quoc Nguyen, the mastermind, remained missing. He was the true architect behind the high-tech intrusions, while the others were mostly operators and beneficiaries. In fact, as early as October 2012, a federal grand jury in Atlanta had issued an indictment of 29 criminal counts against Viet Quoc Nguyen, age 28, and Giang Hoang Vu, age 25. But it was not until March 2015 that the indictment was unsealed and publicly released, by which time nearly all the co-conspirators had been neutralized. However, capturing Nguyen remained a massive challenge as he was hiding far outside the reach of US law enforcement. So who is Viet Quoc Nguyen, and how cunning must he be to evade the FBI's pursuit until this very day? According to available information, Nguyen was born in 1987 in Vietnam, which means that when he launched his first attacks in 2009, he was only about 22 years old. There's little information about his family or upbringing, only that he had lived in the Netherlands for a period and may have studied or worked in IT while there. The FBI described Nguyen as approximately 1 meter 83 tall, 90 kilograms in weight, with pitted acne scars on his skin. He was believed to use online aliases such as Peter Wine, Peter Norman, and Van de Heeuw, suggesting he was highly experienced in digital anonymity. Interestingly, in a circulated profile image, Nguyen appeared scholarly and mild-mannered, completely different from the stereotypical image of a cold-blooded cybercriminal. Prior to this case, there was no information indicating he had any criminal record. He lived entirely in the shadows of the internet. This has led to speculation that Nguyen may have been part of a self-taught hacker group that grew out of underground forums. Some even believe he originated from the spammer community, learned how to make money through illegal advertising tactics, and eventually developed larger ambitions. Nguyen's motive appears clear: financial gain. Prosecutors allege that he and his partners earned millions of USD through stolen data and spam campaigns. But more deeply, Nguyen may have been driven by a desire to conquer data fortresses, an ambition that very few hackers dared pursue at that time. Additionally, simultaneously, attacking nearly 10 major US corporations required both recklessness and arrogance, which may have given him a sense of achievement after pulling it off. Giang Hoang Vu, Nguyen's accomplice, was born around 1990. Also Vietnamese, Vu traveled to the Netherlands and collaborated with Nguyen from 2010 to 2012. Nguyen and Vu may have known each other from Vietnam or met online before deciding to work together for profit. Within the group, Vu served as an assistant, helping execute spam campaigns and possibly managing several servers. One of his known aliases was Li Vu. Vu was less skilled and less prominent than Nguyen, but far more unlucky, as he was caught red-handed. The trial unfolded mainly from 2015 to 2017 at the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia in Atlanta. There were no intense battles between prosecution and defense, because all defendants who had been arrested had already pleaded guilty under negotiated agreements. The first was Giang Hoang Vu. After pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit computer intrusion in February 2015, Vu awaited sentencing. At the sentencing hearing on 27 July 2015, Judge Timothy C. Batten Sr. considered Vu's cooperation during the investigation. Because Vu had substantially helped expose the entire network, prosecutors recommended a sentence below the guideline range. In the end, the court imposed 24 months in federal prison, a lighter sentence than many had expected. Public reaction was largely positive, with many viewing the sentence as a textbook example of leniency granted in exchange for crucial information in a high-tech crime case. As for David Manuel Santos da Silva, he was charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering and faced up to 20 years in prison. In court, prosecutors detailed da Silva's role, explaining that he knowingly profited from funds derived from criminal hacking activity. Initially, da Silva refused to plead guilty, but later, likely influenced by his defense counsel, he changed course and entered a guilty plea on 2 November 2015. On 14 June 2017, he was sentenced to 51 months in prison, or 4 years and 3 months. The sentence reflected some consideration of mitigating factors. In his final statement, da Silva expressed remorse, apologized to victims, and admitted his mistake in blindly chasing profit. Sven Olaf. Sven Fransson also faced a conspiracy to launder money charge similar to da Silva, though his case was handled later. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 30 months in prison on 11 December 2017. During sentencing, prosecutors emphasized that Fransson had facilitated laundering more than 1.5 million USD, despite repeated warnings about the illegality of the transactions. The forfeiture of his assets, including his home and yacht, demonstrated that he had profited substantially from the criminal scheme. However, because the defendant was already 53 years old, his attorney sought leniency on health grounds, and Fransson had accepted responsibility for his actions. Ultimately, the judge imposed a 2.5-year sentence sufficiently deterrent, yet not excessively harsh for a defendant who had cooperated. Meanwhile, Viet Quoc Nguyen remains a fugitive, and the court has issued a warrant for his arrest. The charges against Nguyen are extremely serious: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to commit computer intrusion, fraud, identity theft, and more. 29 counts in total. If convicted on all charges, Nguyen could face decades in prison, potentially 40 to 50 years. Prosecutor Leslie Caldwell once declared that the government was determined to bring Nguyen to justice in the United States. After the case became public, the phrase, "hack 1 billion emails," flooded US. Media from Reuters and AP to technology outlets like Wired and Krebs & Security. Many newspapers even called it the largest email theft in history. Nearly a dozen US companies were direct victims of the attack. First and foremost was Epsilon, the world's largest email marketing provider, managing email programs for hundreds of major brands, including Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, Barclays, Kroger, Walgreens, Marriott. Founded in 1969, Epsilon was considered the email treasurer of the United States, storing massive data sets containing names, email addresses, and customer information for countless corporations. The nature of its work required the highest levels of security. Yet, ironically, it also made the company an extremely attractive target for hackers. At the time of the attack, Epsilon had been preparing for its spring 2011 marketing campaigns, but was forced to halt all operations to recover from the breach. As a result, Epsilon's reputation suffered severely, clients lost confidence, and the company had to spend substantial sums to help corporate customers notify millions of end users about the incident. Following Epsilon were 8 smaller companies scattered across various US states. Most of these were mid-sized businesses specializing in bulk email services for corporate clients. In total, from these companies alone, more than 1 billion email addresses fell into the hands of criminals. With such data, malicious actors could launch highly sophisticated phishing campaigns or sell the information on the dark market, turning the stolen emails into targets for countless future scams. The case also served as a powerful warning. First, for businesses. The security of what seems like just email data must never be underestimated. A single vulnerability, such as an employee clicking the wrong link, can trigger a catastrophe for an entire system. Organizations must build a culture of vigilance, conduct regular security testing, and maintain clear, practiced incident response protocols. Second, for individual users, be cautious with your personal information, even something as simple as an email address. Use different email accounts for different purposes to avoid putting all your eggs in one basket. And when receiving emails, even from familiar senders, always verify signs of phishing before following any instructions. Now, 10 years later, a full decade has passed. Viet Quoc Nguyen remains completely invisible, as if he vanished from the face of the earth. The FBI continues to keep an active warrant for him and asserts that Nguyen will be brought before a US court the moment he is caught. So what do you think? Where has he gone? Could he have returned to Vietnam and quietly joined other cyber operations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to like, share this video, and subscribe to Vietnamese Case Files to support the channel. See you in our next shocking case.